7 of our series in the book of James. This has become our summer series, and the subtitle of my message this morning is Get to the Source. Get to the source. If you're a human being and you've been alive for more than, say, 5 seconds, you have dealt with conflict, okay? You've dealt with it in your past, maybe you're dealing with it in the present, or you're definitely going to deal with conflict in your future. It's just a part of life. Conflict, disagreements, and arguments, they're inevitable. They're inevitable, they're gonna happen. Maybe you're experiencing it right now. There's no getting around it unless you have zero passion or no opinion, right? If you have no passion about anything or you don't have an opinion about anything, you're good. But if you have either one of those things at all, you are going to, at some point in your life, some point at work, some point at home, you're going to be involved in some sort of conflict, disagreement, argument, something where emotions start to rise up, and you start to get angry, and you start to fight, you start to jaw, and then conflict arises. And here's the deal. There's a constructive side to conflict. It's not all bad. There's sometimes where conflict causes progression to happen. There's a place where you're plateaued, you're at a standstill, and you need that conflict. You need that little kick in the hiney. You need that little whatever, that little push to start progress again. You need something brought up in your life that you didn't see. There's a constructive side to conflict that leads to progress, and then there's a destructive side of conflict where it leads to a falling out, it leads to bitterness, it leads to offense, it leads to hurt and pain and wounds. And so in this chapter, in chapter number 4 of the book of James, he goes into the destructive side of conflict. And so I want to get right into it. Like I said, we're going to be in chapter number 4 of the book of James. And he tells us right from the get-go of this chapter where the source of conflict and dissension and arguments and all of that stuff comes from. He gets right into it, and he says this: the source of your conflicts is you. He just gets right to the point. He says the source of the conflict going on in your life, the source of the fighting and the arguing and the debating and the hurts and the offenses and all of that stuff, the issues you have with people, the source of that is you. That's what James says. Verse 1 and 2 of chapter 4, it says this: what is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You are jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. James is telling us here in this passage something we see played out every single day. From nation warring against nation, from politician against politician, from Floyd Mayweather against Conor McGregor. Okay, church member against church member, husband against wife, children against parents, sibling against sibling. You see it all the time. And almost any conflict, quarrel, or falling out can be traced back to both parties not getting their way. Every source of conflict, every sort of disagreement, it can usually be traced back to people not getting their way, and because they're not getting their way, they want to fight to try to get their way. And so what happens is you start to have a tug of war. I want my way. No, I want my way. I want my way. And that's where conflict starts to arise. And what James is telling us about the source of quarrels and fights among his readers is actually quite counterintuitive, because our natural tendency when we're in a fight, when we're in a quarrel, when we're mad at somebody is we automatically point the finger, we point the blame at the other person. That's our natural tendency. That's where we go. We very rarely say, you know what, we're fighting because of me, but let's fight. We never do that. It's counterintuitive. We're always blaming someone else or something else. We always think it's the other person's fault. You know, sometimes when Priscilla, she raises her voice at me, when we're in a heated, passionate discussion and she raises her voice at me, I'll say, why do you have to yell at me? Why are you yelling at me right now? And she'll respond and say, the way you're acting is making me yell at you. And I'll tell her, I didn't realize I had that much power over you where I could literally possess your body, open up your mouth, get into your vocal cords, and make you yell at me. You see, here's the truth. Although I probably provoked her to anger, because I like, you know, it's kind of fun teasing her, and then she gets real mad, and I'm like, dang, I was just teasing you, girl. Although I provoked her to anger, I didn't force her to react the way she reacted. No one can force us to react or respond the way we respond. That's up to us. No matter how annoying that person is, no matter how provoking that person is, no matter how rude that person is, our response, our reaction is out of our own choice and our own free will. But when we're in the heat of the battle, we are naturally inclined to point the finger at someone else, aren't we? It's him, it's her, it's that. You know what I'm saying? The president is making me act like a lunatic. I've heard that a lot lately. My child's behavior today forced me to respond to them in that way. That person just doesn't get it. If they would just see things the way I saw them, we wouldn't be fighting right now. But because they don't see things the way I see things and I'm right, we're going to be fighting. If they didn't act so uppity and snobby and this, I would be nicer to them. Always shifting the blame, always pointing the blame somewhere. If only this person did this, I would react differently. If only this person saw things the way I saw it, things would be so different. Here's the deal. We need to learn, and I mean, we need to learn how to agree to disagree. We need to learn this because it's not natural. It's not something that we naturally do, but we need to learn how to agree to disagree. Because here's the deal. Just because someone rejects your point of view doesn't mean they're rejecting you. That's something we need to get, because I think we forget that sometimes, and we equate someone not agreeing with our idea, our thought, or our point of view with them somehow taking a shot at you. They must have something personal against me. That's why they don't agree with me. We need to learn how to agree to disagree. Have you ever met a serial Facebook unfriender? Someone that's constantly unfriending, then they friend you again. I've been told before, yeah, hey, I just began to see your posts again. I'm like, why? Because I unfriended you? I didn't even know. No skin off my back. I mean, but there's some people that are addicted to unfriending people on Facebook. You're like, hey, did you see what so-and-so posted the other day? And they're like, nope, I unfriended them a week ago. I'm like, oh, okay, why? Because they disagreed with me about something and I couldn't take it anymore, so I just hit the unfriend button. And you're like, what did you disagree about? Oh, whether the earth was round or flat, whether landing on the moon was a conspiracy or not, whether Katie or LeBron is better. And you're just like, really? And you realize that this person, anytime someone disagrees with them, just pop, they hit the unfriend button. And then maybe a week or 2 weeks later, they come to their senses and they friend them again, and then when they disagree again, they hit the unfriend button, and it just goes on and on and on. And to me, this points to something deeper than just someone being addicted to unfriending people on Facebook. It points to the fact that you're too immature to have a discussion with someone that doesn't think the same way as you. It points to immaturity to me. Now, I understand that there are some people that are just straight up contentious and they just want to pick a fight. Now, those people deserve to be blocked and unfriended. But I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about where if someone disagrees with you about something, anything, political, sports, movies, you automatically get mad and you just can't handle someone thinking differently than you. That's what it points. It points to a feeling of, it points to immaturity, like I said. And so James says, you want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. It reminds me of that scene in The Count of Monte Cristo. I don't know if you've seen it before or not, but it's when Mercedes and Fernand, they're sitting on the rocks by the ocean waiting for Edmund to get back, and Fernand, who is supposedly Edmund's best friend, is hitting on Mercedes, and Mercedes looks at him and says, I know what you want. I know what you want, Fernand. You remember when we were kids and Edmond got a, what did he get? He got a little, he got a whistle. He got a whistle, and Dante got a, I'm mixing up the names now. Edmund and Dante got a pony, and she said, you were so mad that Edmund was so happy with his whistle, and you weren't happy with your pony. He was more happier with his little whistle than you were with a pony. And the thing is Dante, it wasn't about what he could get. It was about that he wanted Edmund's happiness, and he couldn't get that happiness, and so he tried with all of his strength and all of his heart to try to get happiness from Edmund. And he almost succeeded, but we all know that Edmund got the last laugh. If you've seen the movie, if you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's a great movie. Do you want what you don't have? Do you want what you don't have? You see, when you focus on what you can't do, you won't do what you can do. Let me say that again, because it's good. When you focus on what you can't do, you won't do what you can do. When you focus on what you don't have, you can't enjoy or appreciate what you do have. When you're always focused on the thing that someone else has, or the thing that you just don't have, when you focus on that thing that you don't possess, you can't enjoy or you can't appreciate the things that you actually do have, or you won't do the things that you can actually do and are gifted at because you're so focused on the lack in your life. One time, sometimes when we're taking a picture, when we're taking, like on my wife's Nikon camera, sometimes we'll take a picture, and after it, we'll see, and the thing that we were focused on is completely blurry. And sometimes when we're taking a picture, what we think we need to do is we need to change the lighting around. When we're taking a picture, what we think we need to do, we need to adjust that thing that we're trying to focus on, or we need to shift the thing we're trying to take a picture around. But the whole time, it's not about shifting the things around you. It's not about changing the lighting. It's about changing the focus on the camera. And there are some times in our lives that are focused. We're focused on what we don't have. We're focused on what we don't possess. We're focused on what somebody else got. We're focused on somebody else's promotion. We're focused on somebody else's gift. We're focused on something else instead of what we should be focused on, and everything in our lives become blurry, and we start to try to change things around. We try to start to shift and move our external circumstances around, and the truth is that we just need to change the focus a little bit. But we're looking other places that we shouldn't look. There was a time when we were on the beach, and I was taking pictures of Priscilla, and when we went back to look at these pictures, she was all blurry. She was all blurry, but there was something that was crystal clear that the camera had focused on that I promise I had no idea about. It was a woman, her rear end in a bikini, and her rear end was crystal clear, and my wife was completely blurry. And I promise, she doesn't believe me, but I promise I had no idea about that. I don't know how it happened, but it did. Sometimes we've got the focus on the wrong thing. We need to just shift our focus. Instead of trying to change our circumstances, we need to change our focus. When we chase what we don't have, It's like a doctor diagnosing all of our symptoms, but never getting to the root of the problem. That actually happens a lot in real life, right? It's like knowing what's wrong, but instead of getting to the root of the issue, we just diagnose just the symptoms. We take care of the symptoms. Chasing what you don't have is like trying to capture a greasy pig. Now, I've never done this before, but that's the picture that came to my mind as I was thinking about this. You can grab a hold of that pig, but it's going to slip out of your hands. That's like chasing something. In fact, not even chasing what you don't have, but chasing something that God intended for somebody else. A lot of times we're chasing something that God never intended for you to have. He intended for that person to have. Yet we're chasing that thing, and it's like a greasy pig. We're chasing it down. We feel like we get a hold of it, and it squirms out of our hands, and it runs over here. We trap it in the corner. We get to it, and it squirms. It's because God didn't intend for you to have it, but you're trying to chase it down. Pastor a while ago gave me some great advice one time about having a small church. He said, Steve, don't preach to the people that are not there, because you'll miss out on ministering to the people who are there. There are people right here that you need to minister to, that God has called you to minister to. So don't start preaching to people that aren't there yet. Preach to the ones you have. Be a good steward of the people that you actually have. You see, the key to our church growing is not chasing a church that I do not yet have. It's being a good steward and being faithful to the people that God has brought into my life. Maybe you need to stop chasing a job that you don't have and do the best that you can possibly do at the job that you do have. See, maybe we need to stop chasing a marriage that we see someone else has and start working on the marriage that we have. Maybe we should stop looking at churches that have more people and opportunities and plant ourselves here in this church and create the kind of church that we want and that we're dreaming of and we're thinking of and that we're chasing in our mind. Maybe, just maybe, God isn't releasing that thing we want because we're not being faithful with what we already have. Then James goes on to say, you are jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and wage war to take it away from them. I'll take it even a step further. In our social media culture that we have today, we might be jealous of what we think others have. Not even what they have, what we think they have. It used to be that we were jealous of the house that people bought because we saw how big and how nice it was. We used to be jealous of the new car someone had because we saw the engine that it had in it, and we saw how fast it could go, and we saw how new it was. But now we get jealous of the images that we see other people post. Just because someone posts it doesn't mean they possess it. Just because someone posts it doesn't mean they possess it. Just because they look like their life is perfect doesn't mean that's the case. Just because they post a picture smiling from ear to ear at dinner doesn't mean they're happy on the inside. We can look however we want to look, but nobody can see what's on the inside of our heart. Just because it appears someone has a ton of friends doesn't mean that they have any meaningful relationships. Because the beautiful thing about social media and the tragic thing about social media is that we can create whatever life we want in 140 characters or a mashup of photos, can't we? We can create whatever image, whatever brand, whatever lifestyle that we want to create. And it might be real or it might not be real. But we get to dictate that. You see? And so don't come to conclusions and say, you know what? Man, I wish I had what they had. You don't know if you wish you had what they had. God has something for you. God has something incredible for you. God has something amazing for you. God has something fulfilling for you. So don't look at someone else and say, man, I wish I had what they had. Because you don't know. You just don't know. James tells us here that our natural fleshly tendency when we become jealous of someone else and can't seem to attain what they have is to not cheer them on, but to try to take away the joy from them. That's what he says, okay? Don't be the person when someone tells you that they bought a nice car that you shoot back and say, well, maintenance is going to be expensive on that thing. You know what I mean? When they tell you they just got promoted, don't be the one that says, well, now you have to deal with all the headaches of managing more people. Don't be that person. Don't be a hater, okay? When you say things like this, what you're trying to do, because you can't have what they have, what you're trying to do consciously or subconsciously, you're trying to sap the joy from what they just experienced. Don't be that person. It reminds me of the story in the Old Testament that involved King Solomon and two harlots. Back in those days, the king, he was the ultimate judge, and people could bring cases to him and demand a verdict from those cases. And so even a harlot, even a couple harlots could bring their cases to the king, and he would judge their case. And so the story goes that two women came in, and they both gave birth to a child at the same time, and they were living together, just those two women. And during the night, one of the ladies rolled over and suffocated her baby on accident. And so she woke up and realized that her baby was dead. And so what she did was she took her baby and went and put it in the bed of the other lady, and took the living baby and put it by her. And in the morning they both wake up, and the woman who had the baby that was still living noticed that her baby's dead, but this isn't her baby. And she goes and confronts the lady, and the lady says, no, I didn't do anything. This is my baby. And so obviously she knows what her baby looks like, and so she ends up taking the case to King Solomon. And so she gets to King Solomon and tells him the story, and King Solomon says, this is what we're going to do. He says, give me a sword. Asks one of his servants to get a sword, and he says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut this baby in half, and we're going to give each of you a piece of the baby so that you can be satisfied. And the real mom pipes up and she says, you know what? I don't want to do that. You give the baby to the other lady, because I'd rather my baby live and not raise her than have my baby killed. And the other lady pipes up and says, you know what? It's all good. You can cut the baby in half. Give us each a piece. And here's the deal. The thing about the lady, and then King Solomon said, give the baby to the one that wanted the baby to live, because that's the real mom. You see, the other lady, she didn't care about raising a baby. She just cared that other lady would experience the same pain that she was experiencing. She could care less about the child. All she cared about was, that lady's going to experience the same hurt and the pain that I'm going to experience. If I can't raise a child, she's not going to raise a child. If we live life like this, our lives will be full of conflict, bitterness, and unhappiness. We're never going to be happy. We're never going to be satisfied. We're never going to be fulfilled, because we're always going to see someone else that has more than us. We're always going to see someone that has a better job than us, that has more money than us, that has a gifting that we want and desire, and we're always going to try to kill that thing. We're never going to be, we think we're not going to be happy unless we take away what that other person has. And when we take it away, it's going to leave us with an empty, unfulfilled, unsatisfying feeling. You see, when we try and take someone else's baby or dream or family life or marriage away, when we try to take someone else's baby away, it devalues the worth of that thing to us, because it's not really ours. The woman whose baby was not hers devalued the other woman's baby because it wasn't hers. That's why she was willing to cut that baby in half. Because she didn't care about the baby, because it wasn't hers, all she cared about was that she is going to experience the same pain that I'm experiencing now. She's going to experience the loss that I had to experience. You see, conflict is birthed when we carry the attitude of, well, if I'm not happy, then nobody's going to be happy. If I'm not happy, the people around me aren't going to be happy because I need them to experience and feel the pain and the loss that I'm feeling and that I'm going through. You see, we need to be people's biggest cheerleaders. We need to be people's biggest cheerleaders. We need to be cheering people on. We need to celebrate people's wins. We need to be the ones that are cheering on the loudest. We need to be the ones that are encouraging people the most. When someone wins in an area of their lives, when they get promoted, or they get a raise, or they get a new car, they get a new home, or one of their parking tickets, they dispute it and they win. We need to cheer them on and celebrate them and pat them on the back instead of being mad and angry and frustrated that they get something we don't have. We need to be catalysts for people instead of barriers. And James goes on to tell us why we are chasing something we don't have. And he says this: you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. You don't have what you want because you're not asking God for it. In other words, you are trying to get something from people that you can only receive from God. You think the source of your happiness lies in the hands of your boss, when in reality your source of happiness lies in the hands of your Heavenly Father. You think you'll be happy if you can take away someone else's joy, but you'll only be truly happy when you have joy unspeakable from Jesus. We are trying to get something from our friends, from our family, from people in authority in our lives that God never intended for us to get from them. He intended for us to go to the source, and that's our Heavenly Father. But we're trying so hard to get it from that person. We think that person's going to fulfill us. We think that person's the answer to our prayer. We think that person's the answer to our emptiness, when all along they don't have the keys to unlock the door that you're trying to go into. Only God does. But we're not asking God, we're asking people. You see, joy, God wants to give us, God wants to impart to us a joy that celebrates others' victories, where we can truly be joyful when we see someone else win. A joy that doesn't come from scheming or manipulating. A joy that lasts. A joy that's there regardless of your situation and circumstances. That's the kind of joy that God wants to give you. And when James says, you don't have because you don't ask God, sometimes we'll think automatically, oh, okay, well, that person has the job that I want, so maybe I need to ask God, give me his job. I don't think that's what James is talking about. I think James is talking about why you think getting that job is going to fulfill your heart, and getting that from God, satisfying that desire, where you're getting your self-worth from getting promoted. I think James is saying you're not asking God to fill that part of your heart. Because here's the deal. If God answered your prayer and he gave you that other person's job that you want, you're going to find something else that doesn't fulfill you, because you're not dealing with what's going on in your heart. You're dealing, again, with the symptoms. You're dealing with the outward fruit. You're not dealing with what's happening inside and what's causing you to want that thing, right? James is saying, ask Jesus for the things that you are trying to take from others. Ask Jesus to fulfill that part of your heart that you think whatever you're chasing is going to give you. Ask Jesus to fulfill that part of your heart. Ask Jesus to satisfy that part of your soul. Ask Jesus to fulfill you in the areas that you're not fulfilled in. You can find rest and contentment in Jesus if you ask. If you ask, you can find that rest you can find that contentment. You can find that satisfaction in Jesus. Matthew 7:7-8 says, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks, it will be opened." For some of us, we're knocking on the wrong door. We're asking the wrong person. We're seeking fulfillment in the wrong thing. And we need to start asking God for the things we're trying to get from someone else. Can I have the worship team come up? Here's what I'd like for you to take away from this morning's message. First, when you're in a conflict with someone, look inward instead of always pointing the finger at someone or something else. First, look inward and say, what's going on with me? What do I want that I'm not getting that's starting this conflict, that's stirring up this conflict in me? Am I trying to just get my way? How can I turn this conflict into something constructive instead of something destructive? Look inward. Point the finger at you first before you automatically say it's their fault. It's their fault. It's what they're doing that's making me act like this. Take responsibilities for your actions, reactions, and overreactions. Take responsibility for those things because ultimately you're the only one that can control how you respond to situations. You're the only one that can respond to relationships. You're the only one in control of that. And so take responsibility for how you're acting and how you're responding. Take responsibility for the feelings that are stirring up and how they make you feel. Take responsibility for those things. And secondly, look to Jesus to find fulfillment, rest, and contentment. Look to Jesus. Stop looking to other people and other things. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with those things. But if you're looking for those things to fill your heart and flood your heart with happiness, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Stop trying to chase something that God intended for somebody else. Stop looking for your marriage to look like the marriage you see someone else posting about on Instagram. Stop looking for that and just start working on your own. Stop looking for your situation and circumstance to be perfect because it never will. It's never going to be perfect. You know, if you feel God is calling you to do something that is risky, but you're looking for the conditions and the circumstances to be perfect, you're never going to step out because conditions and situations and circumstances, they never become perfect, because if they were perfect, it wouldn't take faith. It wouldn't be a risk if everything was just laid out for you, right? Stop chasing something stop chasing a relationship that God intended for someone else to have. Pursue the relationships, the friendships that God intended for you to have. It's so easy to look at all the negative stuff in our lives and only see the positives in everybody else's lives. It's so easy. And when we do that, we miss out. We miss out on enjoying what God has given us. Remember, when you focus on what you can't do, you won't do what you can do. When you focus on what you don't have, you will not appreciate or value or be grateful for what you do have. You see, you'll end up being mad because someone else is so happy about their whistle when you yourself have a pony. Don't focus on someone else's whistle because you have a pony that God has given you. Stop chasing something that God intended for someone else to walk in.